Hello friends, and welcome back to Freakish Fridays. Tattooed Biker here with you. And tonight I've got an unsettling and chilling collection of emails from viewers detailing times when a dogman or an upright canine cryptid was seen in real life. These true stories are sure to make you look over your shoulder when you're out in the woods. So grab your silver bullets and let's ride. Hey Tattooed! So to begin, this story happened back in 2018. I arrived in this small rural town near Camp May. The company I was working for at the time was sending me out to go door to door, advertising cable and Wi-Fi that they wanted me to sell. I was getting weird vibes throughout the day, as the town itself was very small and a bit creepy, with people staring at me or giving me the cold shoulder for the entire day. It seemed like a lot of the townsfolk that I encountered that day were on edge, and it was weird, tense atmosphere that I shrugged off, as people are generally weird all the time. I just continued doing my job, chugging a Red Bull to keep me going. Besides the weird atmosphere, the scenery was actually quite pretty once you got off of the main road. I had to stop at several different streets, and some were in the woods on long and seemingly beautiful, endless roads. It was quite scenic. Just before sunset, I was scheduled to visit a few houses on a small peninsula. To get to this peninsula, you had to go down a very long road, past a summer camp area, past a trailer park, past the woods, and then you finally land yourself in a small open area with a bay marsh, a couple of small, expensive houses, and shore access. The houses were so close to the water, it seemed to be a code violation, but I'm sure they were built to withstand storms since they looked so expensive. Every house had its own theme, and the area was mostly deserted. Only one house had someone inside, whom I had talked to after knocking on his door. I was so distracted looking at the houses and scenery that I didn't notice how fast sunset was approaching. I came to the realization that I should start heading back, to avoid being alone on that long deserted pathway in the woods. I'm never comfortable after dark and isolated places, especially without cell service. I was making my way down the path, so far so good, as it wasn't completely dark yet. As I approached the wooded area of the road, I was walking a bit faster, since there was no street lights and the sunlight was rapidly fading. As I walked at a decently fast pace, I noticed something. The woods were suddenly eerily quiet. All the life that I was hearing before was gone. No crickets, no birds, just pure silence. I stopped in my tracks and got chills down my spine as I got the feeling that I was being watched. I looked around the dark woods for any sudden movements, and then, like clockwork, something up ahead made its way out of the tree line. It looked to be some type of large animal. My brain went into overdrive, trying to analyze whatever this animal was. Was it a bear? A dog? No, it looked like a large dog, but dogs don't get this big. Though I was intimidated by its large size, whatever it was seemingly hadn't noticed me. Even though I was scared, I also didn't want to walk back and go into that one man's house. As a woman, I would rather take my chances with a wild animal than be alone with a man I don't know in a deserted holiday neighborhood. Suddenly, as I was thinking this, the large animal in the distance had finally noticed my presence. It was observing me, not entirely sure of what to do with me. There wasn't enough light anymore for me to see its face, but I felt unusually frightened. Whatever I was looking at was definitely too big to be a black bear, with a shoulder height of at least 5 feet on all fours, which is comparable in size to a brown bear. The mass on this creature was extensive, as the outline of what I could see looked like a wolf on steroids. It was very muscular. I also noticed that the outline of its face was similar to that of a German shepherd or a wolf, as it had perked ears and a long snout. In the heat of the moment, I could only hear the sound of my heart beating, as fear and adrenaline started to crawl its way into my bloodstream. It almost felt as if time stood still. And then it dawned on me. What I was looking at wasn't a normal animal. And it was simply too big to be any animal I could recognize from New Jersey's catalog of fauna. And if it wanted to attack me, I would be powerless against it. It was simply too big. Though to calm myself down, I threw the idea that this creature was out of the ordinary out, because I felt like this could be rationalized somehow. I made my brain go back to the idea of this just being maybe a large dog or coyote. I also didn't believe in cryptids, and was completely unaware of what size coyotes are supposed to be. So I made a quick decision. Realizing that this could very well be a life or death situation, I came to the conclusion that this very large dog-like creature was probably a skittish coyote that I could scare off to calm down my nerves. What other choice did I have? The longer I kept standing there, the more aggressive I might come across to this animal, and I didn't want to get territorial or get the idea that I was easy prey. So I decided I would make the most hideous, loud, confusing, and startling scream or howl that I could muster, and just sprint the rest of the way. After I screeched this hideous sound out of my body as hard as I could, the animal quickly changed its body language to defensive. But then it quickly changed its mind to deciding I wasn't worth a fight, as it ran a decent distance into the woods. I decided to sprint as fast as I could past the area and beyond. I sprinted until I reached the end of the road, and noticed there was a summer camp with a street light near me. I rested on top of a table there, out of breath and feeling my heart pounding out of my chest. However, I was still very shaken up, and still felt like I was being watched. I kept my eyes on the tree line. My eyes were darting around, looking for any sign this animal was still there. Once I felt like the coast was clear, I located the next house I was scheduled to visit and quickly made my way over. I met a nice family who ended up buying cable from me, and I told them what had happened to me that night and how I was treated by the locals. The lady of the family, who I presumed to be the mother, said, "I don't know why they sent you out here alone. These woods are dangerous after dark. There are creepy people who live around here." The impression she was giving me was that there were animal encounters that she couldn't explain, and that there were lots of ex-convicts in the area, and people who should have been arrested but haven't been. She was equally concerned about the people as she was about the animals around this place. This gave me goosebumps. How many times today could my life have been taken? They were extremely concerned for my safety and told me to contact my team leader so I could get picked up. They said they didn't want me to go outside again, and that I should call it quits for the night and not make it to any other houses. Till this day, I still have no idea what kind of creature I encountered. There are strange things in the woods, things people don't speak about or cover up. I felt like the townsfolk of that town knew something about what I encountered. So, weird creature I encountered in the woods, let's never meet again. Thanks for reading. Signed, Donna. Number 2. Hey TB, I consider myself an outdoorsman. I'm very experienced in hunting, camping, hiking, and general survival. I'm very familiar and used to wildlife, and I was charged by what I believe was a cryptid called the Dogman. It charged me and my cousin. It wasn't a bear. A bear can't move like it did. And it wasn't a normal wolf, as they can't comfortably run on 2 legs, whereas what charged us seemed natural at what it was doing. I can elaborate further. This happened around June or July of 2007, I believe. I was around 17 years old, but more cocky then, but still somewhat knowledgeable of the outdoors. My family used to own a cabin in northwest Wisconsin. I basically grew up there in the summer. I knew the woods well, but at night it was wise to stay in the cabin, or at least by the bonfire by the beach, because of bears, wolves, and cougars. One of the creepiest things was, if you were having a bonfire, the tree line was visible from the fire pit and the beach. And at night, you always felt like you were being watched from that tree line. But during the day, the woods always seemed normal, not so creepy. That is, until this incident. So this happened somewhere between 12 and 1400. Me and my cousin were having an airsoft battle. I was in full woodland camo and he was not. I retreated onto the ATV trail, into the woods for a tactical advantage, and our battle took us about 200 meters into a third of the way up the trail. We had enough at this point, and were standing at the edge of a clearing on the trail talking, and he was maybe 10 feet from me. When I decided to mess with him, I shushed him and said, "We're being watched." He froze. Then I realized the woods were dead quiet, and I got spooked and started scanning the tree line on the edge of the clearing, and that's when I saw it. The teeth gave it away. It was just standing there, staring at my cousin. I don't expect you to believe me, but what I saw was a wolf as big as a black bear. It looked about 300 pounds, but it wasn't normal. This thing was on 2 legs, crouching next to a tree, grasping it, with almost a clawed hand. Its fur was reddish-brown. I told my cousin quickly that we have to go. And the next thing I know, he's sprinting. And I looked back at this thing that had locked on and had taken a few steps on 2 feet. And I turned and ran when it looked like it was about to drop down on all 4s. We could hear it, and it sounded like it was right behind us. But for whatever reason, it let us go when we broke out of the tree line and headed back to the cabin. What bothered me the most was the sheer size. This thing looked to be about 7 feet tall when it stood upright. And where it should have had front paws, it almost looked to have large hands. Now, I'm not sure how to explain it away rationally. I've heard that wolves will occasionally walk upright, but as far as I know, they can't run on 2 legs. Nor do wolves get that size. And black bears tend to waddle more. The closest thing I can think is a werewolf or a dogman. I just don't know, but it sounds silly. What do you think, biker? Signed, Ray. Number 3. Dear Tattooed, I'm a logger living in Northwest Oregon. I've lived here my entire life, and these woods are my home. My father and grandfather were loggers, and I took over the family business after they retired. A private landowner liked how we conducted business, and we provided him light arborist work as well. Recently, he had some old trees that he wanted us to take down. It was an easy job, and my buddy and I set to work and ended up cutting well into the night. So we decided to just make camp for the night and pick up first thing in the morning. That way it would be out of our hair and we could just keep it moving. I pitched a tent for us while my friend made the fire. We spent a few hours telling jokes and drinking until we decided to get some shut-eye. The tent ended up being a bit warm, so I decided to sleep out under the stars. It was a beautiful summer night, and the stars were always more visible out here in the woods. So eventually, the sound of the wind and the swaying of the trees put me to sleep. I woke a few hours later, and it was pitch dark. The stars weren't out anymore, and the wind was no longer blowing in the trees. Everything was very still. It felt like it happened in an instant, like I blinked and the stillness just set in all at once. In the distance, I heard a strange noise, a loud, blood-curdling roar echoing through the forest. All my hair stood on end as I reached for my flashlight. When I clicked it on, it was super bright. I beamed directly into the deep woods, and the roar happened again, and that's when the breeze picked up. I crawled back over to the tent to kick it so my friend would wake up. I heard him rustling inside as he slowly unzipped the tent, and he's white as a sheet. I know from the look on his face that he had also heard the roar. We both know what bears sound like and how to handle them. We were scared but also curious. Only a very large creature could make a noise like this one. And I figured it was much bigger than a bear. Then, in the next moment, a tree fell about 100 or so yards from our camp. It was a big old tree. It slammed into another tree, and it fell that one too. My friend looked at me dead in the eye, and slowly he raised his flashlight in the direction of the fallen tree, turned it on, and there it was. This creature was huge, much bigger than a bear. It was on all fours like a bear, and it had a similar giant head, but this creature had very sparse, dark fur and lots of light-colored bare skin. I could see its muscles shifting, and whatever it was, it fell to trees like they were nothing. The creature roared once again and turned in our direction. It stared into the glare of our flashlight, and to our shock, started running right at us. We glanced at one another and quickly climbed a nearby tree. Luckily, we got up there before the creature noticed where we went. We could hear it tearing through the tent in the campsite for what seemed like hours. There we stayed until the sun rose and brightened the dark woods. We had no idea where the creature had gone. When we looked down, our tent and campsite was torn to shreds. It looked like a whole pack of bears had descended on it rather than just one creature. We slowly moved down the tree, watching around the area as we descended. We gathered whatever stuff we could salvage and then walked as quickly and quietly back to our truck as we could. I drove directly home. I don't know what it was, but it could have killed us and anyone else that had gotten in its way. Looking back at the encounter, and after talking to my friend, we believe that it may have been what some people call the Dogman. The human-like way it appeared wasn't only shocking, but totally confusing. I just don't have any other explanation as to what this creature was. Thanks for reading. All the best. Signed, Lonnie. And there it is. All I have for tonight. 3 true stories about encounters with a real-life Dogman. I'd love to hear your thoughts about these encounters in the comments down below. And if you have seen something, or have had an experience that you just can't quite explain, I'd love to hear about it. So send me an email. The address is in the description, and your story just might make it to a future video. So thanks for watching. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you on down the road a ways. Biker.